Some lessons in life are learned the hard way. Some are delivered swiftly in a moment of reckoning that exposes the truth for all to see. The employees of Sterling Trust Bank had no idea that today would be such a lesson. They had no clue that their assumptions, their biases, and their quiet prejudices would be their downfall. They thought they could treat people differently and judge a man by the color of his skin instead of the content of his character. But they were about to find out just how wrong they were. Marcus Grant was no ordinary customer. He was a man who had fought his way up from nothing, building his success with determination, intelligence, and an unshakable belief in himself. He had faced obstacles that many would have surrendered to, had heard every excuse, had been overlooked, dismissed, underestimated. As a black man himself, he knew that there were racist people out there. How did he know, you might wonder? Well, those same people tried to limit him and his growth, but Marcus always managed to prevail with his cunning and intelligence. And now, standing in the grand marble lobby of the bank he owned, he was about to witness firsthand just how deep those biases still ran, even in a place that he owned. It was a crisp Monday morning in downtown Chicago, and Sterling Trust Bank was busy as usual with its abundant flow of customers. The scent of fresh coffee from the employee break room mixed with the polished scent of the grand mahogany counters. Tellers typed away on keyboards, clients stood in neat lines, and managers held hushed conversations in their offices. Marcus stepped through the revolving doors, his polished shoes clicking softly against the marble. He was dressed impeccably, his tailored navy blue suit hugging his broad frame, a leather briefcase swinging slightly at his side. His presence commanded attention, but not in the way some might assume. There was no flashy jewelry, no extravagant display of wealth, just quiet, undeniable authority. As Marcus approached the customer service counter, he noticed a middle-aged teller named Patricia eyeing him with thinly veiled suspicion. Patricia, a woman with neatly curled blonde hair and glasses perched on her nose, glanced at Marcus as if he had wandered into the wrong building. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone clipped and devoid of warmth. Marcus offered a polite smile. "Yes, I'd like to withdraw a significant sum from my account. I am planning to do some work around my house." Patricia arched an eyebrow. "Do you even have an account with us?" she asked, her skepticism apparent. "I am pretty sure I do. This bank is the only one I do business with," Marcus replied smoothly, while having a warm smile on his face. He pulled out his ID and bank card and handed it to Patricia. She took his card and ID, but barely glanced at them before shaking her head. "I'll need a manager to approve any large withdrawals." Marcus nodded. "That's fine." Patricia, however, didn't call for a manager immediately. Instead, she hesitated, then leaned slightly toward her coworker, a younger teller named Jake. She whispered something, but Marcus caught the words. "Watch him while I verify his information." Jake, a lanky man with nervous energy, nodded and subtly positioned himself as if preparing for an issue. Marcus noticed this with quiet amusement, but remained calm. He had seen these behaviors before: the unspoken bias, the extra scrutiny, the assumptions made simply because of his skin color. Minutes passed as Patricia continued to type on her keyboard, clearly stalling and wasting more of his time. Other customers came and went, some receiving warm smiles and quick service, while Marcus continued to wait patiently. But as time passed, his patience started to do the same. Marcus took a deep breath and glanced around the bank. He had personally invested in its renovation after acquiring it. The sleek counters, the new security system, the premium customer service initiatives, all his doing. Yet here he was, being treated like an outsider. Finally, Patricia called over her manager, Mr. Reynolds, a balding man in his late 50s with an air of self-importance. He approached with a stern expression. "What's the problem?" he asked Patricia. She gestured toward Marcus. "He wants to make a large withdrawal, but I need to verify his account further. It seems suspicious." Marcus exhaled slowly, maintaining his composure. "Suspicious how?" he asked, his voice even. Mr. Reynolds folded his arms. "It's unusual for someone to walk in and request a large cash withdrawal without an appointment, and given the circumstances—" He trailed off, but the implication was clear. "Given what circumstances?" Marcus pressed, locking eyes with the manager. Mr. Reynolds hesitated, then cleared his throat. "I just think we need to be cautious." Marcus's patience was running thin. "Let me get this straight," he said, his voice now firm. "I have an account here, I provided my ID, and I'm making a legitimate request. But because I don't fit whatever image you had in mind, you assume fraud?" Mr. Reynolds stiffened. "Sir, if you continue raising your voice, I will have to call security. But if you are subscribed to our channel and if you like this video, you can do whatever you want. In fact, Mr. Racist didn't say that last part, but we did. So make sure to show us some support. Now back to the story." Marcus let out a short laugh, shaking his head. "You know what? Go ahead." Within moments, a security guard approached. A burly man with a walkie-talkie clipped to his belt. He stood beside Marcus, arms crossed. "Sir, is there an issue?" Marcus glanced at the guard, then back at the manager. "Actually, there is an issue, and I'm about to solve it." With that, Marcus reached into his briefcase and pulled out a neatly bound folder. He flipped it open and placed it on the counter, revealing legal documents with the Sterling Trust Bank letterhead. "I own this bank," he stated, his voice cool and controlled. "And as of now, we need to have a serious discussion about how customers are treated here." Silence fell over the room. Mr. Reynolds went pale. Patricia's mouth fell open, and Jake audibly gasped. Even the security guard took a small step back, unsure of what to do next. The room's atmosphere shifted instantly. Customers began whispering, employees froze in their places, and a few gasps could be heard throughout the bank. Marcus continued, "I've been standing here for over 20 minutes, subjected to suspicion and disrespect in my own establishment. All because you judged me based on how I look rather than who I am." Mr. Reynolds swallowed hard. "Mr. Grant, I had no idea." "And that's exactly the problem," Marcus interrupted sharply. "You didn't bother to know. You assumed. And I assure you, that ends today." Turning to Patricia, Marcus's expression remained cold. "And you, whispering to your colleague to watch me like a criminal? Is this how you treat all customers, or just the ones who don't look like they belong in your little world?" Patricia looked down, unable to meet his gaze. Marcus straightened his jacket. "Effective immediately, both of you are dismissed." "But sir," Patricia started, tears forming in her eyes. "No," Marcus cut her off. "You don't get to cry about the consequences of your actions." The security guard, sensing the inevitable, stepped forward and gestured toward the exit. "Please gather your belongings and leave." Over the following months, Marcus personally oversaw changes at Sterling Trust. He implemented mandatory diversity and inclusion training, revamped customer service protocols, and ensured his hiring practices reflected his values. Employees were held accountable for how they treated customers, and mystery audits were conducted to prevent bias from ever creeping in again. His story made national headlines, sparking important conversations about discrimination in financial institutions. But Marcus didn't do it for the press. He did it because he knew firsthand what it felt like to be doubted, dismissed, and disrespected, and he refused to let anyone else feel the same way under his roof. Sterling Trust Bank would be a place where everyone, regardless of their background, was treated with dignity, and that, Marcus knew, was the true mark of leadership. Would you have done the same as Marcus, or would you just fire people like that? Let us know in the comments below.